So my first question would be the artwork for Arctis. How did you come up with that?
Well, I think I've had this fascination for these kind of desolate, icy, North Pole kind of thing. I've tried to figure out why. Maybe it's because I'm from Norway and that's kind of the most extreme part of our. But I think maybe even as simple as something that is stuck from the impression that Seventh Son of a Seventh Son Iron Maiden album made on me.
Okay.
Because that's kind of probably that's the album that I've listened to the most times in my whole life, and that's kind of my first big rock show that I went to. I was very very keen, a very eager player. I played in bands and everything, but after the pyros went off on Moonchild on that tour, I think on the 5th October 88.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. I was 13, and I never considered doing anything else. And I practically learned playing guitar by playing to that album.
Wow.
So it made a huge impression on me. But back to that, and it was just songs on the album. Like My Heart Is of the North. I found I was writing a lot about this feeling of belonging, and kind of philosophizing a little bit about how being situated in that part of the world affected me as an artist, creative person, stuff like that. So it was kind of natural to seek out images, that could describe that.
Okay.
And then I came across originally this picture of Fram, the Fridtjof Nansen's ship.
Okay.
That was frozen into the ice.
Yes.
And it looks very, when you get the ship, that frozen into the ice like that, you can understand that this is really cold and harsh in ways. It's just a very strong image, I think. And but researching this, and embarrassingly, I didn't know too much about it, beforehand. But of course, all that picture and also the picture that ended up being on the front cover and all the pictures in the booklet are, Fridtjof Nansen's own pictures, because he wanted to document his travels, so he actually took, classes, to learn proper photography to be able to document this. So these are from his own expeditions. And I actually got permission from the Norwegian National Library to use, and they gave me links to the high resolution files and everything, and invited me to go see, the originals and everything.
Incredible.
For me, just that made the artwork of this album so much stronger, because he spent on this expedition for the North Pole. In principle, of course, at that time it was an unexplored part of the world, and it was like, I'm comfortable in Norway, I want to go into the deepest, coldest, most hostile environment I know, and just deliberately. They took their ship up to Russia, and I think they deliberately let it freeze into the ice so that they could float with that ice wave towards the North.
Wow.
So it took them 4 years, him and his friend. And of course they never actually reached the North Pole. But I think it's something very existential, about one man or two men, approaching that. The kind of going away from comfort. It's kind of
really
the ultimate challenge, and also to, of course, it's kind of symbolically attached, I think, to my view on, the kind of music that I do. It's very extreme and maybe, on the surface very hostile and aggressive and it's not really inviting and warm, but at the same time I find a lot of beauty in it. In the same way as I see, pictures from like nature documentaries from these Arctic landscapes, and of course there's something special about this all, black and white kind of photography that has a texture in itself. But basically, it's perfect. I think it represents and it's a strong parallel to that kind of black metal attitude. Probably don't have to elaborate more on that.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I mean, the next question is more a personal question, but it is for the magazine too. The final track on Arctis, the Till Tor Ulven, is such a unique track. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you.
But I've struggled online to find a translation. It's a poem.
Yeah, but that's probably because Tor Ulven, the poet, he has a very, very strong kind of following. He has his status in the Norwegian literature scene is very strong. Of course, he was troubled with a lot of depression, and he ended up shooting himself at a very early age. But this was really there's the other author, Hans Herbjørnsrud, who is doing the recitation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the author, and he is local. He's from the same city as me, and I never met him before. He's in his 70s.
Okay.
And he writes novels. I mean, he's kind of won international literature prizes and everything. So he's one of those authors who the other authors kind of look up to. So he, and also from his age, and him and Tor Ulven, they won some kind of joint prizes together. But it's all very, it's not very big. It's because it's kind of narrow, novels. Or it's not novels. It's kind of mixed up there, because in English, of course, novels is the big story.
Book,
but the novels in Norway, it's the short stories.
Right.
Yes. But I'm reading someone.
Yeah. So what is the short story in the song?
No, that is thing that Hans Herbjørnsrud, who recitated. He has the Hans Herbjørnsrud, the Herbjørnsrud Literature Festival in my town, and there are kind of authors coming in, or professors and everything, discussing different literature. And at that festival, I think 2 years ago, one of the main themes was the poems of Tor Ulven, and so we. And I've been invited to do something, for the festival before. So it's kind of they kind of ordering music for me, like writing a special piece for the festival. And but since I had been inspired by Tor Ulven myself, previously I was actually introduced to his poetry by Garm from Ulver.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
So and it really resonated with me. So I found it was very natural to kind of be part of that kind of collaboration, just because it was something that I was familiar with. So it was kind of interpreting his poetry musically, together with Hans Herbjørnsrud.
Because the music is more and more disturbed as it goes through.
And I guess I'm quite a big fan of, especially with poems also, George Bataille.
I don't know.
No, but it's very abstract poetry.
Okay.
And of course, it's almost like music, because it's just a lot of strong images, and there's it's so far out that there's really nothing to understand. But he has kind of some punchlines at the end of his poetry. It doesn't make sense in a way, but it kind of hits you emotionally really hard. I'm kind of in the same way. Tor Ulven's poetry is very much about very microscopic view of things.
Okay.
It takes so that's I think that poem is like, it uses image like for like an eaten apple core and a cigarette butt in an ashtray, stuff like that. But while some sounds, you can hear some sounds outside, stuff like that. So it's very vague, but it's very emotional in a sense. But probably I don't know if he's been translated to English or.
No, I looked online. It was very difficult because apparently it's a very old dialect of Norwegian.
No, it's
not. Oh, right.
No, it's really just Oslo. Very common Norwegian.
Okay.
But actually, just now on 25th of March, me and Hans Herbjørnsrud did another project where we used part of one of his short stories, and we had a 15-minute performance again. At the festival.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that will end up on the album this time.
No, but that was unique, very, very interesting song. So, at this stage in your career, you could play, as you do with Emperor, the big festivals. This is a lovely, small, regional English festival. What made you pick Ritual Festival to come to out of all the festivals in England? Was there a reason?
No, to be quite honest, this is my tour manager,
right?
Who kind of get offers and kind of organize stuff, and I see who my band is available and how it fits in with my schedule, and it's really just a matter of it's really practical.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
And of course, so it's. And he manages, the Emperor shows as well. But of course, the Emperor shows are just very, very limited. That's for getting together for it.
So, would you like to bring Emperor back to a smaller venue like this, or are you happy to have the space for the?
I'm very happy to have the space. It's kind of very sort of like celebrating, 20th anniversary, and it's all good fun like that. But then again, we played, more smaller venues in Japan.
Okay.
Last time we like 3,500 and 2,500 capacity, and you it's something about that. I mean, in 2006 we did Wacken, and we had a very good spot. Where it was dark and it had that great atmosphere. To be honest, last time we did Wacken, it was a bit earlier.
Okay.
David Stein kind of stole our spot with Megadeth, but the atmosphere wasn't quite there. But then again, at Hellfest, you got that thing. But I remember, especially in Tokyo, you had over 3,000 Japanese people just singing along to the end part of "I'm the Black Wizards," like whoa. And of course, the amount of people are far less, but it becomes much more concentrated in the club. And especially for my stuff, I mean, I played stuff like Sweden rock with Ihsahn, and I've ended up with a song called "The Grave," which I often do. And when you play at 4:00, and Accept is playing balls to the wall on the main stage, and people are there, drinking beers, and it's summer and they want to have a good time. It's not the right setting. No. So it's kind of. So I think my format and my expression, as a solo artist, kind of goes well inside.
Yeah.
Or if after dark,
Yeah. To get the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, and especially the drone stuff, when you also with getting the walls, it's kind of the energy becomes more compact in a sense.
So speaking of Wacken, the live DVD, I think is one of the best DVDs out there. I think it's immaculate.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Would you consider doing another one?
We haven't really. Usually these things get filmed and multi-track, but we haven't really put much thought into it because it's I think. We did that, and documented because we didn't know if we were ever going to do it again, and it was a really cool thing, and I think it came out really well. But it's really no use like just doing that over and over, and by the time something like that comes out, some of these festivals, they kind of release their own live
straight to YouTube.
So it's more people can look at those and. And I'm sure record companies and everything would like to make a product out of everything, but
there's a limit, isn't there?
Yeah, it is, and there are so many reissues and stuff of what we do already. So
Well, I have a friend who lives in New Jersey in America, and he was desperate for me to ask you: do you have any more plans yourself or with Emperor to tour North America?
There's always offers coming in, and I played Heavy Montreal. It was in a couple of years ago, I think.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's such a big, and probably now with Trump, it's even worse. To get in,
I believe.
Work visas.
Yeah.
And from my stuff, we don't have any. There are no sentences or anything, holding us back here with my band. But still, the costs, just the general costs of traveling that far, and the costs of the visas and everything makes it. And especially me, who only work with session musicians. It's I can't say okay. There's not. The big financial stuff in this, but can you take one for the team? It doesn't work like that.
No.
So it has to be practical. But I'd love to do something more in North America as well. I mean, we had it was brilliant to play the club shows with Emperor as well. BB Kings and Key Club and House of Blues, you know, stuff like it's that was really cool.
Brilliant.
But of course, with the last round with Emperor, we had Faust back on drums, so he didn't even bother.
Right.
You know, they didn't even bother trying.
No. Well, there's people out there desperate to see you if you ever get the chance.
Oh yeah, I hope so. But I mean, now this will probably be one of my last, you know, for this year, because now we're doing the Emperor shows this summer, and I'm recording a new album. So
Excellent. Well, funnily enough, that leads straight on to the Arctis album. I hate to try and pigeonhole things, but maybe a bit prog rock, more progressive, maybe music-wise. Yeah. Is that where you're heading now? Do you feel?
It's straight. I mean, I often get kind of put into that kind of progressive box, which I don't mind at all. But it kind of comes with assumptions that, for some reason, that I kind of picked up on. I mean, of course, I'm aware of Yes and Rush and early Genesis and you know whatever. But I mean, I don't have this kind of passionate relationship to progressive music. So it's more a consequence of how I write, you know, and just explore those things. So it's I have no intention of trying to be complicated or progressive about things, but you know, in a technical sense. But of course, I always try to be progressive, you know, with myself to try and try out. I mean, this all often sounds very big-headed and abstract in a sense, but for me, ever since that, you know, the early Iron Maiden fan days, I mean, ever since I started making music, I think a lot of the core element that I want to end up with, it's kind of something inside that is constant. There's this driving force to create, and then there's this like limitless goal that is kind of the perfect goal. And I think every new song and every album is another attempt of getting closer to that thing in your head that is that ultimate, that, you know, where you love music, so you know that feeling when you just lose yourself. It's not a happy feeling, it's not a bad, it just, you know, overwhelms you. And that's kind of what you want to achieve. And
so you don't sit down and just think, this is where I'm heading on this album. It's just as you sit down
and it's so many different influences and also a lot of different sounds. I mean, I've of course started using much more analog synthesizers and stuff in my arrangements, but that's basically because listening to music that has a certain energy that those low frequencies give, and how you can manipulate it, and basically I've been doing this for such a long time now. I've made so many albums that I have this idea that I need to challenge myself to keep the process interesting and exciting for me, and that's kind of the only way. If I'm not excited and kind of on the edge of what I do, I don't think I make anything worthwhile listening to. It's a communication thing. And for some reason, I'm almost surprised how I've kind of gotten away with an album like Das Seelenbrechen, for example, which is so far out, and still people liked it. You know, but I hope that I've communicated, you know, through my solo career, and probably with Emperor as well. If you listen to all the Emperor albums, you know, there's not, you know, it's not AC/DC. We're not sticking to the formula. No. And so in a way, it's kind of an honest communication that, you know, I do my absolute best every time I do an album. It may be too far out for you, and maybe next time I do something like Arctis is much more accessible, I would say. Yeah. But I get a feeling that, you know, people trust me to do something honest and genuine, at least. And maybe, you know, sometimes it's their cup of tea, and sometimes it isn't, which is fair enough.
Which is very good, a good place to be.
Yeah, and for me it's kind of a win-win, because then there are so many bands who kind of paint themselves into this kind of creative corner they can't get out of, because people and fans expect them to do certain things, and if they change that, they kind of lose everything. And I think I managed to not, you know, be put into that corner too much.
Well, that's brilliant. So do you think there's any more Emperor-style black metal left to come out, or do you
Oh,
think?
definitely. Again, that's such a core feeling in me. I think that's why I ended up, with black metal. Of course, there's kind of went the grades, but I feel that vocal style and playing distorted guitar, those two elements. It's kind of it's such a second nature thing for me that it will, at some level, it will always be part of what I do, because that's kind of represents my most direct thing. All the other stuff I might be, second guessing, feeling, do I, it's more experimental, but actually the guitar playing and singing, the screechy vocal type, that's very second nature. And for me, that's kind of what gives it the black metal edge.
Lovely. I look forward to hearing everything you've got to come.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. That's me done.
Oh yeah.
That was it.